r/ask Reddit serious what is your most terrifying we need to leave now random rush of fear you've felt? Redditor commented, was riding my bike home from a friend's house when I was a young teen, over 20 years ago. We had both lost track of time so it was dusk when I left. Lived about a mile away. Was traveling down one of the last roads to get home when I had this weird feeling, so I turned around to look back down the road. Saw headlights pass, stop, back up and turn on the road I was on. It was a pretty long road without many houses and no street lights or anything. As soon as they turned I bolted into the woods and hid pretty far in. The car slowly drove by and kept going. No idea what they were doing but I didn't want anything to do with it. Redditor replied, this happened to me too. A van kept driving slightly in front of me and stopping so I'd have to pass by. Then waited in a car park at the other side of a lane I had to pass down for me to come out the other side. I could see the guy looking about for me from where I was hiding. Redditor A added, something similar happened to me when I was 16. The guy asked for directions. I was so relieved until I realized he was jacking off and trying to get me and my 9-year-old sister to see. I grabbed her hand and told her to run. She didn't know what was going on, thank goodness. Redditor B added, I had a similar experience. Back in college, I went out drinking in the city center. When the bar closed I decided to walk home alone, my bicycle was stolen and my friends didn't live near me. The walk home from the center to my house takes about 30 to 40 minutes. So drunk me is walking alone on a calm, straight road. On my left is a forest park area and on my right is the road. I just passed the roundabout when a car with loud music comes up ahead. When it is next to me, the car stops and the door to the passenger seat is thrown open. Some weird guys in the car are telling me to get in. Me in my drunk state yelled back that they should go fuck themselves. They close the door and drive further. Until I hear they're not. I hear their car going fully around the roundabout so they're back in the direction I'm walking. I quickly jump into the forest park area and hide in the bushes. I see the same car slowly drive by where I just walked. Once I couldn't see them anymore I jumped out of the bushes. I sometimes wonder what would have happened to me if I didn't hide in those bushes. Redditor commented, when I was hiking in the woods and I saw a baby bear, I slowly turned and walked quickly away from the bear, because I'm not getting eaten. I had to drag my friend along with me because he didn't understand why we needed to return the way we came from. Redditor replied, Mama right behind and she hangry. Redditor responded, facts dude, I'm not about to die. Mother bears scare the hell out of me. Redditor replied, I think they would scare anyone who was only ready for a hike and not a hunt. Redditor responded, we plan to stay the night and then hike back in the morning, but I took it as a sign to never return to that area. Redditor A added, as an interesting note, when traveling a mama bear will always be in the lead, with her cubs following. Not that it makes any difference as far as the spirit of your comment goes. Which I totally agree with. But anything that can potentially increase one's awareness of which direction an angry mama bear might be coming from is worth knowing. Redditor B added, you won't get eaten. But mama will make sure you're good and dead. A baby bear is probably the most dangerous thing you can come across in the woods. Redditor C added, I remember when I was with my nanny once and we were driving down the mountain she lived on. A baby bear waltzed out onto the road and stopped to just stare at us. She hit her brakes and just sat there. It was like a good 5 minutes wait but the cub finally moved on but she didn't move. I asked her why and she pointed out of my side of the window, because of that, and I looked over to see big ol' mama bear meandering along after the cub. Shit was terrifying but at least we were in the car so we could make a quick getaway if we needed to. Redditor commented, while babysitting, I heard the sound of glass being scraped with something metal and immediately hid the children in a walk-in closet. I called the police and very nearly escaped being robbed or worse. Redditor replied, the way you reacted saved many lives, good job. I'm sorry that happened. Redditor responded, unfortunately it's extremely common in my state. Redditor replied, it's never happened to me, but I have about 5 guns in my house in case it does. While I never joined up, I was training for the Marines for a while, so I have some training, even though a real Marine would kick my ass. Anyway, come one night, I'm on my computer at 3 a.m., couldn't sleep, insomnia, when I hear 3 very solid knocks on my window. That's 7 feet up. I don't hallucinate. I'm always a very sound mind. There was nobody outside and there are no trees near it. There's a fence anyway, so I would have heard the bells all around the fence. I also have 2 dogs in that fence. They have a full-built shed with lights, heat, cooling, etc. They were inside the shed shaking with fear. I felt the worst urge in my entire life to run away, but I grabbed my AR-15 and made sure my dogs were safe. Fuck that. Redditor A asked, what happened when the police came? Redditor responded, they swept the area for evidence and found a hardware store receipt with his credit card info on it. Redditor commented, definitely when my town got hit with the worst firestorm we've ever had in 2017. Thomas Fire. We knew there was a fire somewhere. Maybe another town? We weren't too worried. The power is beginning to go spotty, and the winds are howling outside. Then my roommate gets a call from a friend on the other side of town, my house is on fire. You guys need to pack a bag. After the call was over, the power went out and stayed out. So we packed our bags, and I start to hear little plinks against the room, almost like rain. But it isn't rain. It's just ash. Not 15 minutes had gone by, and I look outside. We lived by a large hill only 2 blocks away, and it was burning. It got there so fast. I got back inside and tell my roommates we have to leave right away. This is when our neighbors started wigging out too. We had to then capture our 3 very scared and confused cats. It was so crazy to drive away and see only blackness ahead of you, but in your rearview mirror only flames. Our neighborhood home ended up being spared, however many of my friends who lived closer to the mountains were not so lucky. Redditor replied, I can't imagine the fear. My son was stationed at Pendleton for several years, and I worried about him and his little family every time a fire broke out. They are on the East Coast now, so I get to worry about hurricanes lol. Redditor A added, former San Diego now living in Florida. I'd rather deal with hurricanes than fires. They're much easier to predict. I'll hear about a hurricane a week in advance and have enough time to prepare or leave. Fires are random and spread fast. Once it's there, you gotta go. Can't hunker down when there's flames surrounding you. Redditor commented, nephew and I were walking home from getting a pizza at night and he and I just looked at each other and said, do you feel that, in the exact tone, and he and I both looked in the direction we felt it from and got spooked that we both had the same dreadful feeling and decided to run the rest of the way home. He and I have never felt such intense fear. I still think about it and have a feeling someone was watching us, probably looking for an easy target. Redditor replied, this is one of those cases where you 100% trust your gut and ask questions later. Might have been nothing, but often your body responds to stuff you don't even realize is danger and you've just gotta trust it. Redditor A added, yep, somebody must have turned their head just enough that their subconscious mind caught something in sight that was not good that their conscious mind didn't, then set the alarm bells off. Redditor B added, for thousands and even hundreds of thousands of years as ancestors, humans have needed to survive intensely dangerous landscapes, constantly hunted, and fight to catch and eat prey as well. The bad feeling people get is their subconscious brain telling them they are being hunted. Always listen to it. At worst you look silly fleeing nothing. At best you don't get murdered by something that you couldn't see and hear but knew was there. It kicks in other situations too. The urge to jump off of tall things, the cravings our bodies have when in starvation, basically our bodies are bent on our survival too, it's not just our minds. Redditor commented, I was in an Irish bar in Bangkok with my wife, and a group of 5 very muscular Asian guys came in and started to drag a white guy out. The bar owner stood up and yelled, this does not happen here, and amazingly the 5 dudes listened and went outside to wait for this guy to leave. The owner asked the guy what's going on and he said these dudes were going to kill him. At this point the bar owner was trying to smooth things over and offered us some free beers, but I'm 99% sure this was actually an Irish mob-owned bar and we were there at the wrong time. We were definitely in a hurry to leave. Long story short, we left and never went back. A coworker of mine went there later and told me the waitress urged him to leave because there was going to be a hit there that day. Redditor replied, Irish mob in Bangkok? Redditor responded, IDK, they definitely seemed like they had criminal connections. As soon as this happened, a couple guard-type folks came out of the back room. They also laughed when the police showed up saying, the fuck they gonna do? It was a weird experience, my most I got a GTFO experience for sure. Redditor commented, I live in Dallas, Texas. About almost a month ago, it was Sunday night and I was doing my typical Uber Eats drives around 9 p.m.-ish. I noticed there's a thunderstorm warning right when I thought about stopping for the night, but it cleared, so I decided to try to stay out till 10. I needed to get cheese, so I walk in Kroger, that's where I was parked. As I'm walking in the door, I hear the tornado sirens go off. Then my phone sounds off with the same watch alert. I run and get the cheese, silly I know, and hurry to head home so I can get safe. It clicked in my head that if the siren went off it was a big deal. And I was terrified. I was speeding home and it seemed that every time I passed a stoplight they were turning off behind me. I get closer to my apartment complex and it's all torn up. Shattered windows, trees down everywhere. But it was so ironic because had I been home I would have been worse than when I was sitting in the Kroger parking lot. Redditor replied, saved by the food. Something similar happened to me, only there was no storm warning. Beautiful summer day, I was visiting my mother in a hospital and had a 1-hour drive back home. 30 minutes into the drive I thought I should make a stop in a small town to get something to eat at a restaurant, which I would never usually do, because it's cheaper to eat at home. The moment I had parked my car, I see the weirdest looking clouds approaching in full speed. By the time I make it to the restaurant, it's turned into a thunderstorm with torrential rain. I wait it out, get back into my car and continue my way home. I don't get far because the road home, which lead through a dense forest, is full of fallen trees, huge oaks. If I had not stopped to eat, I would have been on that road when all hell broke loose. Once I finally get home via a detour, I see that my entire neighborhood has been hit hard by the storm. Fallen trees, damaged roofs, huge hailstones had even destroyed people's windows despite really solid outer roller shutters. The windows at our place were unprotected and I was fearing for the worst. Turns out our windows were intact and there was only very minor damage overall, water in the basement. I couldn't believe our luck. It was like the storm completely spared our house. Redditor responded, "It's so ironic you say that about the clouds because I remember looking at the clouds a few hours before all hell broke loose thinking, oh that's kinda coning at the bottom, like it was narrow at the bottom but the top was really wide, one cloud all by itself. And my car had been giving off the thunderstorm warning. I didn't think much of it because I just moved to Dallas from Austin and Austin literally got spared from all the bad weather. Definitely will pay more attention to the weather up here." Redditor commented, "When I was dating my crazy ex, we got into a fight on the highway while I was driving. When things seemed to calm down I got out of the vehicle to breathe and she drove off. As I was walking down the highway, at night, I could feel an immense fear building up. I grew up in the woods, walking around every night, but this was something I never experienced before. A few minutes later I saw something run across the road, so I started walking backwards. Immediately right after that, my ex came back to pick me up. As much as I hated to get into my car with her, there was no way I was staying on that highway." Edit, "It was a small animal like a coyote." Redditor replied, "That scares me man. Being hunted is its own form of torture." Redditor A added, "My high school counselor told my PE class this story of him and a buddy backpacking through the woods for a few days. On their last day, they stopped near a waterfall to have lunch. Out of nowhere, his buddy shouts duck and a fucking cougar jumps out of the bush at my counselor's back. Luckily he ducked, and although the cougar got its claws into his back for a second, it rolled over his back and he and his buddy had to kick the shit out of it and run. Later when they were looking through photos, they saw the cougar in the background. It had been stalking the two of them the entire fucking trip." Edit, "For any reasonable skeptics out there, I just emailed him to see if he can send me any pictures." Redditor B added, "I live in a small city near several state parks, and I know that feeling. When I first moved down here, me and my brother were just taking a walk at night and we saw something cross the street up ahead of us. I had never actually seen a coyote before, and I didn't realize how big they could be. I saw it run off in the direction we were planning on going, and even though I figured a coyote would leave two adult men alone, I figured it was safer to avoid it anyway. When it crossed the street though, alarm bells definitely started going off in my head." Redditor C added, "I remember driving in rural West Michigan at night on a 2-lane back road. I was going 75 miles per hour but this asshole in a big truck with super bright headlights comes up and rides my bumper. I speed up to 80, but he's still tailing me. Remember, I'm on a 2-lane road where the speed limit is 55. Anyway, this guy passes me and turns off into a rural road where there's nothing but cornfields for miles. I pass the road where he made a left turn, and see no headlights or brake lights in the distance. The nearest house on this road was at least a mile later. I would have had time to see this guy driving off. Maybe he just turned off his lights? The whole deal gave me a weird feeling. Redditor commented, when I was a teenager my boyfriend and I had a spot to go park and mess around. Never had any issues until this one night when the closer we got to the spot the more sense of dread I felt. We got to the turn-in and he said he had a bad feeling. I told him I did too, so we drove past and went elsewhere. The relief we both felt driving away was like a huge weight off our shoulders. I'm pretty sure someone was waiting in the trees with bad intentions. Another time after we were married we were going down a twisty road off deep in the woods. I was driving. He suddenly said he had a bad feeling and to just drive through and not stop for anything. He was really spooked. Seconds later on the tightest hairpin curve a man ran out of the woods waving his arms. I flew right past him quick as possible. Pretty sure he was going to rob us. He was laying in wait for the few cars that used that road. Edit, the curvy road is in Waterloo SC. If you are driving into Waterloo from Lawrence on 221 it's the first road to the right over the little hill into town. Treacherous road in that one spot. Redditor replied, maybe he felt the same thing you did and was trying to get out of there. Redditor A added, there are so many stories in this thread of sudden inexplicable feelings of terror from the woods I kinda believe that to possibly be possible. Redditor B added, I know it's not related to Op's story, but when a predatory animal is stalking prey, birds and other animals stop moving and making noise, it tends to raise alarms in the human subconscious and provide a feeling of dread. Redditor commented, I was camping with a friend in a backwoods camping area, not very many sites and they were all super spaced out. We had already been there one night, had the site fully set up, we had been hiking all day, the works. We drove into town to get some food, and when we were driving back to our secluded campsite we passed a man walking out of the only road to our site. We both locked eyes with him and I got a super creeped out feeling. He stared at us like he knew us and hated us, but we had never seen him in our lives. When we got to our tent we went inside and everything we had in there was tossed. Our bags were dumped out and our clothes were thrown everywhere. We quickly realized both our hunting knives were gone, along with a bunch of our clothes. We also realized it had to be that guy we saw, there were no other sites or hiking paths he could have been walking from besides ours. We jumped in the car and drove back towards where we had seen him, he was gone. We drove a bit further and found a common area where other campers were gathered. We sprinted down and asked, have any of you seen this guy, and described him. The people at the gathering just stared at us and didn't speak, giving us an even more creeped out feeling. It was at that point that I told my friend, we need to leave this place right now. Walking back to our car we looked over the edge of a guardrail and saw all our stolen clothes in the woods. We gathered them up but didn't find either of our knives. Knowing this guy was still out there with those knives and that no one around us cared freaked us out so much, we packed the car up and ended our camping trip early. No way were we staying out in those woods one more night. Redditor replied, why do these people even exist? Redditor A added, this is what kind of common sense I am internally screaming every time I see a scary film about camping. Mind you, the ritual is actually pretty decent. Redditor B added, this is one of the reasons tent camping makes me nervous. It's too damn easy to murdered by someone when the only thing separating you from them is a tent. My husband doesn't share my skepticism about camping because he thinks the kind of people who camp are unlikely to murderers, but I just think you never know who's out there with you. Redditor commented, was once at summer camp and was walking to the beach, it's like a 5-minute walk from the cabins we were staying in and the path to get there is made of sand and surrounded by trees. We were supposed to go in partners but mine dipped, anyways I was walking for probably about 2 minutes and I hear leaves crunching in the trees beside me, so I look over and what I see is none other than a brown bear cub lugging a tree. I think that everyone knows that where there's a cub, there's a mama. This bear starts making bear noises, I just about shat my pants and bolted out of there. Redditor commented, it was about 2 a.m. in our apartment on the top floor, 3, and we woke up to the fire alarm going off. It was late and we just woke up and we've kind of been conditioned to feel like fire alarms aren't actually real, and then I saw smoke billowing on from under the door. It was fucking terrifying worrying about what was outside that door, and running down the stairs while it burned our lungs and eyes and we could barely see was an unforgettable terrifying experience. Redditor replied, I will remember this and try to take fire alarms more seriously. Redditor added, house fires are fucking terrifying. About 5 years ago I fell asleep on the couch and woke up to an inferno on my front porch. Lost a lot of my hair and beard on the left side of my face getting out the back door because I had to get so close. Luckily my wife and roommate got out, but we only got 2 of the 3 dogs out. Redditor commented, I was throwing a football with a friend in my driveway when suddenly I got a terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. I hear him say, did you just get a horrible feeling? We both felt it from the woods across the street. It felt like despair and fear. The closer we got, the worse it was. We noped out real quick. Later that night we both had nightmares of being kidnapped. Redditor replied, I had that feeling about 3 months ago while I was outside. Had just finished taking the garbage out, and as I was walking back to the house it was just like wham, I got hit by a strong sense of fear that just washed over me, felt kinda like water, if that makes sense, and my body was screaming, get to the house. Now. I looked around and didn't see anything and just slowly walked back to the house while keeping an eye out. I live in a rural area, and a cougar had been sighted in our area like a month or so prior. So I'm guessing it might have been lurking or something. Redditor A added, okay, small disclosure here, I live in the suburbs of Sydney so definitely no cougars, but hot damn if they don't terrify the absolute shit out of me. Don't know how people can handle living anywhere near them. Redditor B added, I'm in Utah, we get a lot of cougars, you kinda just avoid going outside for a day, give or take, and that's it. We also get a lot of crackheads reporting orange house cats as cougars. Baby bears though, you get the school locked down for that shit. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video please like and subscribe for more.